Alright, so how's it going, guys? I am Mike, also known as Captain. Today I'm going to show you around my Ableton template. I find it pretty handy, and yeah, so let's just dive in. Yeah, so right off the bat, when I open this up, most of the time I end up writing drum and bass. So 174 BPM. Basic drum and bass kick pattern, snare pattern, just a couple of hi-hat patterns, cymbals, a couple of simple polyrhythms for percussion, a basic sub sign, basic 808 sub, a basic reese for that awesome droning drum and bass, and then a couple of risers and impacts that I'll probably end up replacing. So this gives me kind of a palette to work with. So yeah, right off the bat, you get this. First off, I'll start. This top Midi channel is nothing but pattern markers that I use, and I'll base that on, this is just standard EDM layout, at least for drum and bass. And I'll switch it up. I've got a couple of different ones in my user library. Yeah, a couple of different songs that I've picked apart, and I also have their pattern to use. Next up, I've got this tiny little, it says KK, and what that is that's the Native Instruments Complete Control channel, and this allows me to use all of the fancy stuff of complete control and any one of my other MIDI channels without having to map every VST inside of complete control. Because next up, I've got my kick snare bus. I use them also for sidechain routing, and that's the reason that my tops are in a different group. The drum bus, obviously Ableton's drum bus, it's super amazing. Helps you keep your drums in key, helps you just fine tune your kit. So yeah, the kick, I have a 128 multi in there that I have made. And it is 3 banks of 128 kicks that you can work through. So select that. You can transpose your kicks. You can adjust the amount of volume velocity, which I find really useful. If sometimes you want all your kicks to be full velocity, sometimes you want them to be variable. And then I have a standard attack, decay, release so that I can change the envelope a little bit, and then I have a volume. So yeah, next I've got my snare channel. Again, it's a 128 multi-bank that I've made. Same as the kicks, no difference. All right, so next I've got my my tops group, and you'll notice this one's a little different because it doesn't output to master, it outputs to my sidechain bus, and all of my groups except for the kick snare and usually the vocal group will go into that sidechain bus. Yeah, just makes it easy. That way I've got sidechaining the whole time I'm working, and then at the end I can fine tune it in just one place in one channel. Hi-hat, same thing. Again, we've got a multi for hi-hats, got a multi for cymbals. Percussions, it's just a whole bunch of percussions, nothing fancy. So yeah, sub channel or subgroup. I should note, yeah, I do have, most of my groups have an EQ, and I will fine tune it, but it's pretty much my subgroup has a 100 hertz roll off, because I pretty much just use the bottom note and then the first harmonic, just to get a little top sound out of it. So yeah, we've got my first sub, and this is a sub patch that I wrote, super simple. It's nothing more than a sine wave. But realistically, a sine wave will give you your best sub response. Yeah. So let's see, we've got 808, and this is actually using Sublab, which again, also pretty handy. Thick subs, and it's got just a basic broken beat kind of sub pattern. Basses, I went ahead and just slapped a reese on, and it's just a reese that I whipped up, and then this moving notch filter rack, which is also available free on my website, or probably in a link on this video, or on Gumroad, or lots of places for free. And all it does is add a little movement to the reese. Just a sine wave and a triangle wave, but it sounds fucking good. And yeah, you'll notice I've got a notch filter already here moving. Probably have another notch filter in there. And then I have this moving notch filter with an LFO. Yeah, so a lot of movement in that. Simple reese though. It gives me a nice bass to work with later when I'm doing sound design. Instruments, nothing fancy here, just an init patch and serum, because I know I'm going to probably use a serum instrument. I might use a contact instrument, all kinds of stuff, but 9 times out of 10, I'll end up using at least one serum instrument, so it's nice to have as a placeholder. My vocals group, which is, as you can see, routed to master. There's nothing there. It's kind of a placeholder, but I keep it there because I also do multi-band dynamic EQ sidechaining of my vocals so that they cut through the mix. FX chains, again, just a couple of simple samples, nothing fancy. And then we've got my bus routing, and this one is also available as a template. I'm going to make one. I've got one for LFO tool right now that you can use. So yeah, I'll walk through this real quick. I'll probably make another video going more in depth on this one. So yeah, the bus routing. The output of the routing obviously goes to master. And then I have my drum duck group. And what this is where all the magic happens. So I will add a MIDI channel for each one of the MIDI channels that I actually want to duck. So if I've got kicks, intro kicks, ghost kicks, snares, multiple snares, claps, whatever it is that I want to duck, I add a MIDI channel for that. And I will select the MIDI channel I want, set it on in, and then the output routing will be to the duck channels, which is where the side chains feed to, and then it will MIDI trigger LFO tool. All right, and so this is the secret sauce, the magic right here, and this is where I will shape my kick and shape the duck pattern of it. In this case, it's a pretty short one that I was shaping against. Yeah, just simple volume shaping, nothing fancy. Saves me from having to do automation later, and it's nice and clean. And at the end, you just shape it a little bit. You may have to mess with the delay just a tiny bit. On the MIDI channels, just to give LFO tool a couple of milliseconds to process it, but or if you have to actually, you know, like give it a little, if it's clicking, you might have to give it just a little bit of leeway to kind of pre-duck, which sometimes sounds good, sometimes doesn't. But that's it, and so In this case, I've got my kick being the primary duck, and then the snare is the follow-up duck. If your snare has a super transient and you really want it to be I work in broken beats, so a lot of times the snare and kick are just completely separate. But if you're writing house, you might want to rearrange the snare to be first in this chain, just so that you get the snares transient as opposed to the kicks transient. So yeah, this is the Sidechain channel. This is where every one of my groups feeds. This is where even the returns end up feeding here. Yeah, and so this Sidechain is just a place where I've got a channel. I can do anything to every single channel. It's basically my pre-master. So anything I want to add that I don't want to add at the master, like say I want it to affect the return buses as well as, anyway, this also allows me to feed Midi and all kinds of crazy routing stuff that you can't do in the master channel in Ableton. All right, so in this case, I told you I sidechain the vocals and do dynamic EQing based on that. Basically, each one of these EQ nodes will do dynamic sidechain EQing based on the vocals and will automatically duck it out in each one of these 5 bands. Super useful for vocals cutting through and not knocking everything out of its way like you would with a standard compressor. You could get the same effect with a multiband compressor. I just really like this M Auto Dynamic EQ. All right, and then I have a return bus. And what this does is this allows me to send the reverb and the delay, or however many returns I have, into this sidechain bus, and also be able to handle the volume. Basically, the return buses are a little finicky, so you got to adjust the volume or some kinds of things. And this just gives me a place to adjust the returns before it goes to the sidechain channel. Not strictly necessary, just something I like to have. But yeah, like I said, my return buses here actually send to the sidechain, so that my reverbs and my delays, the returns are actually sidechained as well. And in this case, I've got a gated reverb set up, nothing fancy, and a basic Valhalla delay, which I happen to like the sound of. And then on my master channel, I have Ilgate's drop rack, modified a little bit. I added some gain stuff and a few other things in there. But it's just a simple way to automate a build, like so. Just do that. Yeah, basically it's one macro automation for a drop. Super awesome. And then this, I have a 3 extremes. Any of the 808 guys will know what that is. And what this basically does is it allows you to listen to the extremes of your mix. So the extreme highs, the extreme lows, the side and your mid side. And I also added what I call a smash limiter. And what that does is it just mashes everything into a limiter, and it shows you where you're going to have artifacting problems before you get to the mixing, or like the later mixing and mastering stages. It really saves a lot of time, at least for me. And I'll just show you what that does real quick. So you'll notice this is the let me put the loop on. This is the high extreme, and you'll notice even my kicks have a little click to them. Basically, you can still hear and make out the sound if you were on a, I don't know, telephone or something. And then we've got the lows again, carries the rhythm, carries the sound, and then you've got the sides. And that is everything that is just in your side channel. So there's that my kick drum and my subs and a couple other things are just overlapping and making the limiter just scream and super mad. Anyway, so that's that, and that is pretty much all of my arrangement view, I think. Yeah. So that's all of my arrangement view, my session view. Again, like I said, I've just got a bunch of basic patterns. So, you know, like house patterns, breaks patterns, dub patterns, ghost kick patterns, swing patterns, just all kinds of patterns and builds for kicks and snares, hats, cymbals. Percussion is just a couple of different polyrhythms, and then just a couple of really big long notes to fill in, you know, for starters on the subs and the reese. Everything. So yeah, this is my basic template. I would love to share it as is, but it's got quite a lot of stuff I can't share. But I will try to make certain parts of it available. If there's anything that you have questions about or something I can make available, let me know. Anyway, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to go to bed now. So I hope you're having an awesome day. Later.